and use of administrative data in various fields. So we have 5 presentations in this, and as per the sequence of presentations, I will be calling out the speakers. First speaker is Mr. Titus Mwisomba. He is from Tanzania. He has 25 years of progressive experience in interdisciplinary research and development. He has served as statistical officer during 1986 to 2004, as a statistician in 2004 to 8, as principal statistician in 2008 to 2013, and a manager of agriculture statistics department at the National Bureau of Statistics in Tanzania. He has been involved in various assignments, working in collaboration with different experienced experts, specifically at FAO, AFDB, and World Bank. He has coordinated the implementation of annual sample survey in Tanzania for the year 2014-15 and 16-17, with the technical and financial support from USDA NAS. Currently, he is heading the national team, which is responsible for conducting national sample census of agriculture in Tanzania, which has been planned to start with data collection in December 2019. His topic is agriculture routine data systems in Tanzania. May I request Mr. Mwisomba to please deliver that talk.
Thank you, Chair, for this opportunity. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I'm here also to share the best experience on administrative data in the context of Tanzania. I hope that during this session, I will be also in a position to learn from other countries as well. My presentation will just based on the 5 areas, as you can see from the screen. As we all know that when we talk about the agriculture data, the main sources are census, which is being carried out after 10 years in most of the developing countries. And of course, you know the reason. One of the reasons is being finance, which is a major constraint, which makes most of the developing countries to carry out the census after 10 years. But in between, normally we carry out surveys. For the case of Tanzania, we have started carrying out the annual agriculture sample surveys. But apart from these 2 sources, there is another one which we really need to discuss. That's the administrative data. For our case, and I hope in most of the countries, especially developing countries, these data are collected by extension officers according to their daily work. So I can say that this is also one of the major sources. Administrative data is one of the major sources for agriculture data in most of developing countries, including our country. As we all know that accurate and reliable agriculture statistics cannot be left behind, because we need this data basically for planning, evidence-based decision making, but also bear in mind that the sector also produces an opportunity for employment, but also the sector looks at the livelihood for the rural population, and therefore it's a key for poverty reduction. We can go in detail on that, but we all know that if you are involved in that kind of sector, it means that you can generate income and so forth. Therefore, based on this importance, we really need quality statistics in order to monitor and evaluate developments of the agriculture sector. But also, for the case of administrative data, for Tanzania case, we have agriculture routine data system, which covers all agriculture sector lead ministries, including the National Bureau of Statistics. This is an effort which have been made from the government point of view to make sure that also once we miss data from other sources, we use data also from the administrative data for the purpose which I have already mentioned. Now, let me take you through the administrative agriculture routine data system. What are the major components Of course, when we talk about ARDS in Tanzania, the major components are: one is the village agriculture extension officers, but also we have ward agriculture extensive officers. That's the first level. But when you go up now, we have the district integrated level, but also we have what we call web portal, whereby all these kind of information are being collected. So we are saying that at the first level, this is the set standard for data collection at the grassroots. That's the village people, the extension people. Our grassroots is village and ward. But when it comes to district, they set standardized report for reporting at district level, whereby the agriculture sector lead ministries and the regional secretariat, they come together. But also we have the portal, which based on the application for when we want to capture, process, and sharing of the data. So the data starts from the lower level, goes like that way up to district, regional, and then we get it at national level. The frequencies of capturing data at the village level, as you can see from the screen, we have monthly, quarterly, and annual. So from the ward level, this is how we capture. That is monthly, we capture data, but also quarterly and annually. So some of the variables which are being captured at during the monthly time cannot also be captured during the quarterly time, but also cannot be captured at during the annual, that is at the end of the year. But you can see the kind of variables which are really being covered. For example, at the during the monthly time, we capture about weather condition, disease, crop, about the planted area, and so forth. So now this is the area where now you can see at the grassroots level, these people who are dealing with the data collection, they need to be familiar with all these kind of areas. But when it comes to quarterly, also we capture about the food, village food situation, or farmers groups, associations, but also we need to know about the irrigation, planted area, production, and so forth. So you find that these are the areas which are covered on quarterly basis. But when it comes to annual, we capture about the population and the housing, as it has been listed, but also we capture about the livestock population and so forth. This is what I have been explaining at the beginning, but the list continues because it has got a very big list. But later on, you'll find the challenge which we are facing and how we can improve on this. Let me share with you the flow chart now, data flow chart. As you can see, we are starting from the village level. Number one, from the village level, we collect data and then move it to the ward level. You aggregate, and then from there now we say that we move it to the district level. So where do we aggregate? We aggregate at ward level, whereby the village agriculture extension officers and ward agriculture extension officers meet and aggregate the data using the special form, and then they send it to the district. From the district now, we share it to the ward. From the district we share it to the region, but also we are able now to take it to the what we call ARDS web portal. So through ARDS web portal, we also share the data to integrated report format. Okay. And from the integrated report format, we send it also to the users. And who are the users? As you can see from the list, that's agriculture sector lead ministries, but regions and the others. So you find that this is how the data flows from the grassroots to the upper level. But data users use the report and use the data directly from the ARDS web, specifically for different purposes. With the ARDS agriculture routine data system, we have the user's dashboard, and this is the good thing. that the dashboard gives you immediately the results from the data which have been put in the system. So you can see there we have, if you need to know the number of livestock, if you want to know the type of infrastructure, focusing on the livestock, and this is the best, I mean the basic statistics which are needed by different users according to where you are. So we think that this is the best approach which in one way or another can be improved in order to make sure that we use it once we don't have capacity to continue with those statistical surveys and census. So we have challenges. We are not saying that, as you all know, that administrative data, it has got its own weakness in terms of quality. So apart from the lack of funding, you know, sometimes these extension officers, they are not basically for statistics activities at the lower level. They have their own activities, but we give these as extra activity. So they are not professional, basically. So sometimes you find that there is a low rate of submission, which leads to sometimes you cannot report it on timely. But also the shortage of village extension officers and wards. Sometimes other villages, they don't have these officials to report. But also when it comes to small budget, sometimes some of the activities under these ARDS, they are not being undertaken properly. But bear in mind, we are in developing countries. When it comes to internet connection, in some of the places, it's a little bit a problem. So you find that when it comes to sharing the data from lower level to that region level where we need to do the aggregation, sometimes it's a problem. But also we need to train these people. This is another challenge. Sometimes if you don't have enough funds, these people, as I told you, they are not basically trained for statistics purposes. And you know, we have, as statisticians, we have our jargons, how to handle the data. So we need to train these people in order to improve the quality of the data. So what do we recommend? We recommend that there should be regular training and intensive supervision in order to make sure that we utilize the data effectively. But also there should be a gradual improvement on the web portal in order to make sure that there's a better performance. But also, let us use the new technology for data quality enhancement. The new technology should not be based on the sensors and survey only. Why not using it for the administrative data? For our case, we are using laptops to collect data from the lower level. But I hope during the discussion, the new technology also can be applied for administrative data. Let me conclude by saying that developing countries should give high priority on that area, provided that we cannot undertake census and survey as it has been recommended. For example, survey should be taken annually for agriculture thing, but we understand that administrative data are generated on our daily basis. Let us give priority on that. And also at the application of new technology, for sure, with administrative data, for the developing countries, will be able to use for various purposes, but also to monitor SDG. Why not? If you don't have data from other sources and you have from administrative data, why can't you use it? So this is what we are advocating. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Muyusomba. We will have all the presentations first, and then we will go for the question answer session. So now we will go for the second presentation, which is by Myanmar, Ms. Hla Mayok Hang. So Ms. Hla Mayok Hang, she is working in NSO, Central Statistical Office, and she has a Bachelor of Art Economics and Diploma in Accounts and in Statistics. Current position is Agriculture, Livestock and Fishery sections is working, and she will talk about data sources, data collection, data quality of agriculture and rural statistics in Myanmar. Please.
Thank you, Chair. And today I am present about the data sources, data collection, and data quality of the agriculture and rural statistics in Myanmar depend on the administrative record. Firstly, may I present about the introduction of Myanmar. Myanmar is a global country and relying on the agriculture product. 30% of GDP and about 60% of population depend on crop harvesting and livestock for the livelihood income. So the data sources, data quality, and vital role of the agriculture and rural statistics for the supporting of the decision maker. CSO is conducted in collecting and combining of the social and economic statistics. Economic statistical data from the three main sources of the country: public, private, and cooperative. CSO collect the data in accordance with the Statistical Authority Act 1952 and had the new statistical law on 22 January 2018. So Myanmar CSO Central Statistical Organization is the statistical system is decentralized system as a statistical authority at all Myanmar. Every department has also statistical unit. So set at their own planning and statistical department to meet their need. Implementation now, CSO implementing the National Strategy for Development of Statistics and statistics are vital role of the development of the agricultural statistics by enhancing the capacity of the national statistical system. And also we are discussing about the cluster working group for the data accuracy or quality of statistics. We are organized the 10 cluster with the 10 source reference. For the survey coordination and statistical standard cluster, CSO is the lead of this cluster, and also Department of Agriculture Land Management Statistics lead the agriculture and rural statistics cluster for the data accuracy or quality of statistics. For the administrative record are to provide in Myanmar agriculture statistics. Data on agriculture sector are obtained from the respective department. Report or time series are mainly produced from the CSO and disseminated and line ministry department and organization, and also the publication, but it is only for the international using. So agriculture data are Department of Agriculture, Land Management Statistics, Department of Agriculture, Department of Irrigation and Water Utilization Management, Agriculture Mechanics Department, and Myanmar Agriculture Development Bank. Source of the livestock and fishery statistics, livestock breeding and veterinary department, fishery department, cooperative department, office of the Ministry of Defense and pension department. Source of the environmental forestry department, forest department, Myanmar Timber Enterprises, dry zone greening department, and cooperative department. For the data collection of the agriculture data, CSO sent the requested letter to the Director General using behind the mail and email and CD and CD. After the data collection is done, is the depend on the crop and monthly, quarterly, and yearly. Agriculture data are concerned with the land utilization, soil harvested yield, crop production, fertilizer, and pesticide utilized, quality seed, producer price, agriculture and flood protection, area services providing farm machinery and agriculture loan to the cultivator. For the livestock data concerned with the livestock breeding, production of meat, animal feed requirement, animal health services, production of freshwater fishery, production of marine fishery, area hatchery, and sea production of fish fingerling and reservoir fishery, production of fish pond, fish culture pond, shrimp pond, fish fry distribution, and fishing vessel, and number of the raising crocodile by site and play production. For the forest data concerned with the forest cover, permanent forest estate, and existing protected area, sawmill, number of working elephant, water sheep plantation, tea and hatu law, extraction, production, and distribution, or tea and hatu plantation, or tea tree, hatu tree, and production of banana banana production and minor forest product. We are to provide all the administrative record. For the CSO, after the collection the data, we how to check the data quality. Firstly, we prepare the, after the receiving the data, we prepare the exact file. After that, we analyze the, we checking and analyze that this is really data, threshold level, and check and balance and ground level. It is true or not, decline or increase. After that, before the dissemination, we review the data quality with the Central Strategic Organization and respective department and cluster of the agriculture cluster group. For the respective department, how to collect the data of the state and region to the district level. The LMA is only so government agency with the mandate of the collection and combination of the crop and also responsibility of the land use statistics. Register are associated with the area map. Green map means define the area map. The register are associated with the area for each block, register of the holding, register of fee, and register of crop. The LMS is applying the complete the immunization method for the collecting of the information. Surveyor must visit to each the location and assign with the village track and collect all the information to fill in the register using the respective of the area map. During the field visit, Superior found any changes on the ground. Superior may update on the area map. Superior are also managed by the cycle inspector, and all the work conducted by the superior are checked by the inspector. Here, estimate by crop cutting method is carried out based on the different crop type and sample plot. This is the DLMA how to collect the data collection process. Firstly, superior plot-to-plot basis, crop making, crop survey, crop cutting, and maintenance of the register, and assign of the land revenue and map updating and surveying and mapping. After that, sent to the checking the inspector related the correctness and reliability. After that, sent to the township officer, district officer, regional state officer. After that, they combine the headquarter. CSO is Central Statistical Organization only collect on the headquarter of it, not the basic level, ground level. But because our office is not in district and township level. For the livestock breeding department are concerned with the livestock statistics. Livestock statistics are collect mainly data from the 331 township on livestock and livestock product. Collect by the township livestock staff with the aid of the community animal health worker. Livestock staff collect the data by using the paper-based and data entry with the computer on the ground level and send to the headquarter by hard copy. For the overall state of the data, sample survey are conducted for estimation of the operation of the major livestock breeding and livestock product. Function of the DOF. DOF is mainly responsible for the fishery statistics and providing the data of the both of the marine fishery and water fishery. Recent review of the fishery data collecting by FAO system for improving the data quality, and DOF's Department of Fisheries staff collect the data by using the paper-based and data entry with the computer sent to the headquarters and by hard copy. Also, the forest statistics is responsible for the forestry department, and for the providing of the data, forest cover and Nematema Enterprises is responsible for the forest production. Forest cover status are estimated every 5 years according to the FRA supporting by FAO. Environmental Conservation Department is the new department, and trying to collect the environmental statistics in connection with the development partner for the environmental statistics. Environmental statistics in Myanmar is very scarce, and we are trying to collaborate and concerned with the air quality and GHG emission, and also like the forest are also the data by using the paper-based and data entry with the computer and send the headquarter by the hard copy. Surveys are often conducted to produce the user requirement of the data on agricultural information and policy recommendation. Ministry of Agriculture, Livestock and Irrigation and the related department and mainly conduct with the different of the agriculture survey and census. Recently finished the National Livestock Baseline Survey and Cost of Cultivation Survey. Ministry of Planning and Finance and the Central Statistical Organization conduct the related surveys such as the HIES survey, Myanmar Living Conditions survey, and micro, small, and medium enterprises survey. Myanmar Living Conditions survey, we have a lot of the SDG indicator for the for to support the publication of the SDG baseline report. We are collecting the administrative data, but we have a lot of challenges and limitations. Especially we are collected the administrative data sources, so we should careful about the duplication of the administrative data, and also we should include the private sector data. Mostly we are related for the government data, so we should include the private sector, and also we are combine the union level data. We should include the district and township level data, and also disaggregate data. We are collection method is basically the traditional method. We are now changing the electronic document system, and we are now implementing this process. And also we should know about the user requirement especially for the policymaker, which data we are more support, and we should more collect, and also the data quality is the more accurate and reliable is the very important. Also, we are the decentralized system, so every department has the statistical unit. So we should the harmonization is very important. So we should use the code of practice system is very important for our country. So we are now implementing the coherent of the national statistical system in Myanmar. Myanmar are now implementing the Myanmar Code of Practice and Official Statistics. We are announced in the December. We are announced in the December how to use the Myanmar Code of Practice and discuss about the relevant department, and also. We should supporting the efficiency and effectiveness of the national strategy or development of the cluster working group to improve the global strategy of the agriculture and real statistics in Myanmar. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, gentlemen, next presentation is about strategies for improving administrative statistics on agriculture in Mongolia, and it will be presented by Mr. Rinchin from Mongolia. Please, you can go ahead. Sure. Okay. 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 Rinchin is, I thought. So maybe if he's not there, then we can go ahead with the next presentation, which is from Slovenia. It is on integration of administrative data for identification of the ownership of agricultural land. So it will be presented by Mr. Schurz. Mr. Schurz has studied forestry engineering in Slovenia and Germany during 2011 to 16, During 17 to 18, he worked in European Food Safety Authority in Italy on data collection and data quality. In 2018 onwards, statistical office, he is working in the statistical office of the Republic of Slovenia in the environment statistics division, which is uses geospatial and remote sensing data. Please go ahead, Mr. Schul.
So good morning. I'm Čor Šuštar from Slovenia, as already mentioned, and I thank you for this opportunity to present you the work that we've done at our statistical office on the integration of administrative data for the identification of ownership of agricultural land. Since the work we've done is quite technical, I'm just going to present you the general overview and the broader implications, while the full details you can find in the full paper that is also published. So the work has been done in the scope of Agricultural Census 2020. This census will for the first time be done as mainly administrative census, meaning that we will use registry data and connection and integration of registry data to make the full capture for the agricultural census. So since not all information is always included in a single data source, we also used register data integration. So in the work that I'm presenting now, we identified the ownership of agricultural land, meaning how much of the land is rented versus owned on each individual agricultural holding. So basically microdata that is required for the census 2020. So we did integration of both tabular and geospatial data. I'm sure that we're all very familiar with tabular register data. However, I'm going to have a quick word on geospatial data. That is a bit different case. So geospatial data is all data that have explicit spatial dimension. As you can see an example on the picture here below, this is a map of Slovenia, and the brown area represents the utilized agriculture area. If we zoomed in, we could see the polygons, so now we're talking vectorized geospatial data. We would see polygons of each agricultural plot, and in the background there's also the attribute table containing additional information on those plots. And since geospatial data requires different processing and validation than the ordinary tabular data, it is not yet mainstream in official statistics. However, lately the technologies have developed and matured quite a lot. Thanks to two broader initiatives in European Union, namely INSPIRE, which is an initiative that actually managed to make the geospatial data interoperable, kind of standardize them and made them readily available, which enabled the efficient use of the geospatial data. And the other is Geostat. This is Eurostat initiative. Those are Eurostat projects that provided guidelines that incorporated the geospatial data in various phases of generic statistical business process model. Okay, now on to the process itself. Here is the process flowchart. I'm not going to go in the full detail as it's quite technical. However, I'm going to outline the individual phases and describe them in subsequent slides. So the process itself consists of three main phases. First is modeling phase, the second is aggregation phase, and the third is validation phase. So if we have a closer look at the modeling phase, it consists first, in this case, of geospatial modeling and the tabular analysis. And first we are going to have a look at geospatial modeling phase. So that's the part of the flowchart that's representing the geospatial modeling phase. Here we combined two geospatial administrative registers. One is LPIS, which is short for Land Parcel Identification System. This geospatial data source is quite common in European Union since it's required for the Common Agricultural Policy. So it's part of this database that is required to manage the policies. So here on this picture you can see that each plot it represents an agricultural plot that is used, and in the background in the registers that are there information on the user of this agricultural plot. However, it is not explicitly mentioned whether this plot is rented or owned. Therefore, we needed to combine it with the other data source, which is land cadastre. And you can see here, this one, for difference, is different than the land parcel identification system. This one's continuous through the whole country. So here, not only agricultural plots are contained, but also all the land parcels with other land uses. You can kind of see some similarities between those two layers. However, the borders were rarely matching, since the purpose and the origin of the two layers are different. Therefore, we did the GIS intersect, and this is the result that we've got. And as a consequence of a non-matching borders between agricultural plots and land parcels, we got two distinct cases. You can see the outline here in blue. For example, one agricultural plot that has many land parcels, or vice versa, one land parcel that has more agricultural plots. And this had implications for further processing, especially in the aggregation part of the process. Okay, moving to the next phase. First, we did the geospatial modeling. That's the left red square, and the middle red square is the tabular analysis. So after the geospatial analysis, we did a tabular export of the data and joined them with two other registers. So now we're going to have a closer look at that. So in the tabular analysis phase, we joined two other registers, which are register of agricultural holdings, where we got the information on agricultural plot user. So we connected that to, by an identifier that was contained in the LIPS georeference frame, as well as their household members. We'll get in a minute why was that important. And the other tabular register was the real estate register, where we got the land parcel owners. So the basic idea that we're trying to what we're trying to find out here is if the land parcel owner is the same as agricultural plot user. In this case, we also considered the household members of the farm manager can also be an owner for the land to be counted as owned. For example, if a spouse of a manager or a daughter or a son is an owner of a land parcel, the agricultural plot would be counted as owned and not rented. Okay, so we've seen the modeling phase now, and now we're moving on to the aggregation. In aggregation, we did it by three subsequent steps. First, we aggregated by land parcel. Of course, land parcel can be in co-ownership with many parties, so therefore we had to decide basically what share should be owned in order for land parcel to be counted as owned. Should a minimal share be owned, should major share, or should we take into account the real share? So we aggregated first by land parcel, testing three different aggregations. And in the second step, the same question arose for the agricultural plot, like should a major part, minimal part, or real share be accounted for the ownership. So as you can see in the table below, those three different aggregations from the first two steps would multiply, generally speaking, in 9 different aggregations. However, as 2 of them were illogical, we omitted them, and we tested 7 different aggregation approaches. And then at the end, we aggregated by agricultural holding, which is the end aggregation for the purposes of agricultural census. And then the final step was the validation of the processes. Since we had no more recent data available, we compared the 7 different aggregations with Agricultural Census 2010 and Farm Structure Survey 2013 and 2016. We compared first frequencies on the country level, meaning in what percentage of the farm would renting occur. And also we compared areas on 2 different levels. First on country level, meaning what proportion of the land is rented versus owned. And then we also compared it on each agricultural holding level, meaning we compared the microdata, what are the discrepancies. Of course, we expected the discrepancies, if for nothing else, for the time gap between 2010 and 2019 with the data that we worked for the modeling. However, we considered it, but we thought that it was simply not plausible for the ranking structure to change in such a way to steer us in the wrong direction, meaning that we still consider the most comparable approach to be the most correct. Since we wanted to achieve the data that is the most comparable to the self-reported data, as the self-reported data can sometimes be different than the data that is in register for several reasons. So at the end, we chose the aggregation one that was by the indicators that we developed based on frequencies and areas. And the aggregation one indicates that at least the minimal share of land parcel and the agricultural plot should be owned in order for it to be counted as own. Now to the conclusions. The model that we developed enables us to do a full capture at any time without creating any respondent burden. Also, it's of very high precision, allowing, for example, also for land use differentiation, which is simply not the case if we just use a simple survey question. It's also reusable in other areas of agriculture and also other statistics. But more importantly, it's a step toward an integration of geospatial data in official statistics. Because as already mentioned, like all the data that have a very explicit geospatial reference is now contained in such data sources, and not properly utilizing them would mean not fully utilizing the readily available data that are in the country, also administrative data. Okay, thank you. That would be all from my part.
So, gentlemen, now we come to the next presentation. That is by Mr. Ankur Bansal, India. He will be talking on using agricultural data across administration for driving outcomes. Mr. Bansal is co-founder of a consulting firm which is called Samagra, and he is working with Odisha government on various projects. So may I request Mr. Bansal to please make his presentation.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks for the opportunity. So I'll be talking about how the data is used to drive certain decision in a system. So this is an approach we have tried in one of the eastern state in India, which is highly agriculture in nature, called Odisha. So first, let's look at what a life of a farmer is in India. So first of all, farmers don't know where they will get the inputs, right? Whether it's seed, fertilizer, and other things. Whom should they contact? Because for them, government system is very, very large, and there are thousands of people. So whom to contact? Do they have those information readily available for those contact details? What do I do if there is a change in the weather, or if there is a sudden attack on the pest? So sometimes they need urgent information. So who to go to? What are the things they need to do, right? How do they predict certain calamities? What is the status of my application? Because in India, there are various benefits, welfare schemes, where the farmers have to register first with the government to avail those things. So they just always want to know where their application is. So life of a farmer is not very good. There's a lot of confusion, there's a lot of non-clarity, there is these things which are there. Similarly, if we start looking at from a government official perspective, who is on the ground, the life is not that great for the government official also, because at different point of time for the same data, there are multiple requests which are sent, sometime for the census, sometime for one of the policy they have to implement in various other places. Same information is requested multiple times, and they have to do those tasks multiple times. So sometime when the government official go on the ground, there are 20 to 30 systems where different information is there. Some system will have information on seed indent, while the other system will have on the seed availability, and the third system will have information about how much seed has been sold in my particular village or my particular block. Similarly, sometimes there is a lack of infrastructure. So there is no computer or sort of internet with them. So lot of their time goes into finding the information in various physical files. There are multiple meetings which these government officials gets pulled into without any sort of awareness in terms of what is the objective of the meeting and what are the data point we'll be looking at and what should be the target for the next meeting. So things don't move from one meeting to another. They just sometime end up attending a lot of meetings without any outcome to be there. Similarly, there are other inaccurate data because data is collected from different sources at different point of time. So these were the system from the farmer perspective and from the government perspective. To mitigate that, almost 2 years back, there was a sort of a tripartite agreement which was done between Samagra, which is the consulting organization, Government of Odisha, and Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, just to see can our evidence-backed decision making solve these things both for the farmer and for the government official. So this is the framework we came about, which has been sort of working in Odisha for last 2 years. First is they need to be a decision support system, and that decision support system should have information about all the things which are related in an agriculture thing, from seed, insurance, fertilizer, so forth and so forth. And there are various schemes also. There are, in a state, there are roughly 90 to 120, 130 schemes. So how the government official get those information about every scheme, so they know where the scheme is working well, where the schemes are not working well, what scheme is relevant to what block, what scheme is not relevant there. So all those information available to be visualized at one system. So although the data entry might happen in various systems, but as a decision maker, every information what is relevant for agriculture is available on one system. And then the other part, the third part of the approach, which is very critical, is the decision making forums. So decision making forums are between state officers to state officer, state officer to district officer to block officer, and block officer to village officer. So how those all the forums in the government hierarchy start moving into one focused approach, which is the farmer welfare and the farmer income. So everyone is aligned to one theory of change for the entire department. So these are the three components. So after putting these three components, the belief is that there will be changes in the processes, there will be changes in the people, which is the roles and responsibilities, their training need, their allocation and all, and designing the policies which can be much more data backed or evidence based, as we call it. Now what I'll go is I'll just tell you what are the components of a decision support system. So we have come up with 5 components of decision support system. One is the data warehouse. Why data warehouse is important? Because there are so many data systems in the government. Sometime you will see that one district will have 5 different spelling in 5 different systems. So bringing those systems together becomes almost impossible when you're trying to just see what is the correlation between different things. So first is have a common data warehouse. So everything is driven from that warehouse. There is a standardization of warehouse which is there. Second is MIS framework, which is largely how to get the data. So there are different data pieces. Some data is collected offline, some data is collected on Excel sheets, some data is collected on mobile phone, some data is collecting on spatial data. So how those data set start coming and having a one common MIS framework. The third is a GIS framework. Any data which comes in have a GIS layer of data on it. So you can identify, because in agriculture, geospatial information is can create a lot of decision or enable a lot of decisions. Third is the analytical engine. Once you house so much of data, there are layer of analytical engine which are there. So you can, based on what you want, you can run those queries and see what the status of various things are in a particular geography. And last is the communication engine, which is very critical, because at the end of the day, it's a system, right? So communication engine is you create some sort of a alert in the system if seed supply is below X percentage in a particular block. The officer of that block on a weekly basis get those reminders. If certain things are above certain benchmark, a congratulatory message goes to those officers. So there is not a single sort of static system, but the system is communicating based on some certain benchmark which has been created in the system. It helps in some sort of visibility and tracking various things. It's a singular view of everything what an officer needs, and it enables evidence-backed decision making on the government front. Now the second part, which I talked about earlier, the approach second part is various component or the various agriculture module within the agriculture. So around that, there was a detailed mapping which was done, that in credit, how many decisions are taken throughout the year, and how many data points are required to make that decision. So this kind of a mapping was done, and some roughly 75 decisions are taken based on some 260 different data point. So that is a very important information. So you can just start seeing what are the data set you today have on transactional basis, and what are the data today you have on the reporting basis. Because when the data start becoming more transactional, the fraudulent activities get minimized, and you always have a better real-time data. While on the reporting data, there can be some sort of error. So the whole objective also is just to move all the reported data into the transactional data. So that's the second part of the element. And third is various decisions which gets taken. So the third part which I talked about earlier, the decision forum. So for example, in a weekly meeting of a state, there'll be scheme design, so where the design thinking at the state happens. So one of the decision which was taken, so when we were doing the scheme review, it was identified that there is a limited diversification in certain number of blocks. So can state now design some sort of a scheme which promote diversification in these 18 block, because these 18 block have the agroclimatic zone for the diversification, but they are not having the financial sort of a outlay for those things. So these kind of decision can be taken there. Other thing, at a decision level, some sort of a registration, because all the registration number for various schemes, farmer are registered. So district where the main work is around the implementation, just seeing the monitoring of implementation is there. So that provides, if the farmer registration in particular GPs or particular village is low, they can identify those villages and they can put in more resources or more monitoring support there, just to ensure that the farmer of those geographies gets the proper support and all those things also. Similarly, decisions are taken at different level. So I'll just also briefly talk about a cycle of a data, how the data moves from from one end to the next end. So first of all, any challenge is identified, that what is the challenge agriculture ministry is facing. Out of that, after the challenge is identified, an outcome is defined of that challenge. Then it is defined that what is the frequency of the data, what is the mode of entry, all those things are defined. Then it is aligned with the government owner. After that, communication is sent to all the ground official to collect that data. Then data comes, get analyzed on various sort of parameters, and then those decisions are reviewed in various forums, just to see that decision is enabled now, which is backed by the data. Similarly, these are some of the data points which get reviewed on weekly basis. So from seed, the data would be year-on-year sale. What has been the sale last year? What is the sale this year? Target versus supply. Weekly basis, you will just identify what was the target for this week and what is the supply which has been made for this week. Similarly, for weather data, which comes on a daily basis but get reviewed on a weekly basis, that what is the year-to-date rainfall, whether there is a drought kind of a situation or there is a over rainfall in certain areas. So certain decision in terms of providing either the short duration seed or some sort of other decision can be enabled much more faster rather than in a very longish sort of period. Similarly, pesticide diversification market. So these data set come on almost a weekly basis, which enables decision making at the state level. So that's an approach which has been sort of tried in Odisha for the last 2 years. Again, 2 years is not a long period of time, but it has helped sort of enable certain things from the government side. Where the government officer, especially the ground official, feels that most of the data is now online, which has reduced the time they had to sort of do in terms of repeated data collection of the same thing. It has provided much more visibility. Now they get SMS update. They can see that all the data set on their mobile, on some sort of a reminder, and there is a dashboard also which they can see. Certain things has been much more accurate, because earlier in the offline mode, at every level data was aggregated by some human, but now the system is aggregating data from the gram panchayat, from the village level or from the block level. So there is almost no human interface. So where the human error, the type 2 error as we call it, type 2 error gets eliminated. Type 1 error can still be there if someone has entered the wrong data, but the calculation error goes away because the data comes from directly from the source. There is much more accountability on various metric within the system, because now there are forums which meets on a weekly basis, fortnightly basis, or a monthly basis, depending on what is the requirement, and they get measured on certain data which is real and which is sort of gotten from the source. And it has helped in certain resource allocation also. One of the example, pest is a major concern in a state like Odisha. But when we looked at last 10 data, we realized that 54 block out of 314 blocks get roughly 80-85% of your pest incidents. So it helps government also to target those areas better, where the resource allocation can happen faster. We recently started a program, the associate program, for the agriculture university graduates. So we could deploy those people there where the endemic needs are higher, rather than just distributing across the state without any sort of logic. So that's the approach which has been tried. So I wanted to share with all of you. Again, there are a lot of challenges as we go ahead, because the data quantity will keep on increasing. How do we manage that data? What are the sort of analytics we can do? But that's a journey which will continue for a few more years, and hopefully together we can just make Odisha one of the ideal state in India around the agriculture data. So that's from me. Thank you.
Thank you. So, gentlemen, we had 5 presentations. 4 speakers have already spoken. We have one more presentation, but I am not sure Mr. Rinchin from Mongolia is here. So, now we go ahead with our question and answer session. Administrative data, as you can see, we have discussed a variety of things in this topic, right from the areas where we are doing everything manually and then trying to do various things with the manual data. On the other hand, there are presentations where everything has been streamlined and automated and things are happening automatically. So from that perspective, let us try to understand how these administrative data can be useful. So if you have any questions on any of these presentations, please go ahead. Yes, please.
Thank you. Elena Ramos from Eurostat. The question is for Slovenia. I would like to know if your work has already opened the door for reconciliation of the cadastre and the land parcel identification system data sets, because geographically they had some inconsistencies. Is it possible to clean them up officially?
So no, basically that's not possible for a reason, because the land parcel identification system is simply not. It's meant to delimit the area how the agricultural plots are used, and that in land cadastre is simply not the case, because they are used in several different ways. So they even adjust each year depending, for example, how forest would grow, or if the land use would change, and it changes too quickly for it to be the same as the land cadastre.
Okay. So, yeah, Mr. Jayo.
Thank you. I have 2 questions, one for Titus, Tanzania, and another one for Slovenia. For Titus, he rightly pointed out that quality is a major issue in the administrative register system that they have. And he mentioned technology as a way to deal with quality. So could you please elaborate a little bit more about that? Because quality is as you recognize it, is a vital factor to use this information even for, as you said, why not SDGs? And then for Slovenia, you mentioned that for the agricultural census, you are or you're planning to go more administrative based. To what extent is this going? I mean, if you can say in percentage, what percentage of the census items will be covered by administrative sources? And is that for 2021 or for what year? Thank you.
Okay, so maybe first we can take these questions and then we can go for the next question.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jairo. And of course, as a country, jointly we are trying to very much to make sure that we enhance the quality of data from this system. One is by using one platform, whereby actors from different ministries, like Minister of Agriculture, Minister of Livestock, National Bureau of Statistics, we come together and try to go through the data set and do some sort of data reconciliation and validation. But also we have introduced the system whereby while going through the data set, we can see the outliers which have been reported by checking with the neighbors, the reality on the ground. So this is how we are trying our best to improve the quality of the data from this system. But another one is to make sure that the government also set aside some funds to train the extension officers. We know basically that these are the people who are reporting the data at this system. So there's no way we can just leave them aside. So we normally request funds from the government to make frequent training so that they can adhere with what we are telling. So the National Bureau of Statistics is taking the lead on that aspect, perspective. Thank you very much.
So thanks for the question regarding Slovenia. Regarding the administrative census, I can't give you the exact percentage, what kind of percentage will be done administratively, as my colleagues working on that, but it will be mainly administrative. I think that there will only be a small telephone survey to supplement the register data that are available. So, I mean, an educated guess would be over 90%, but that's just it. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, over there.
Year 2020, sorry.
Thank you. I'm Ahlam Al-Rusan from Jordan. My question for Sylvania. He mentioned that he used geospatial for data. My question is, what's the tool that used for this and for data set? And it's open source tools or free source or not? That's my question. Thank you.
So to do this work, since before we did not use geospatial data that extensively. First we tested MapInfo and QGIS, but since the data set were quite big and extensive, this did not work properly. So now we went and bought the ArcGIS, which is a bit more costly, but in our experience works better.
What the problem was by Q, because now we heading to use it instead of ArcGIS because it's open source and ArcGIS is very costly. So all the presentations, all what we read, it's the same, no problem of QGIS. So can you display what, or explain what the problem in that?
So I'm not an IT expert. I can't give you the exact answer why QGIS did not work as it should. It just did not. Maybe it's also a consequence that the few people who work on that area in our office had a lot more experience in ArcGIS, so maybe that's part of the reason. But simply testing QGIS, maybe because of the extensive data sets. For small data sets, I believe it works the same. But to cover the whole country and to have the various shaped polygons and large data sets, maybe the ArcGIS would work better. And it's also, we appreciate the support that they provide and not the community help. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. I am Sandra Mudisa from Botswana. Mine is closely related to Jay's question on data quality, and it's for Tanzania. There's this framework on data quality assessment framework, which is supposed to be rolled out in most developing countries, and it's in line with the NSDS. I just want to find out if you have already adopted the framework. Thank you.
Yes, to some extent we have started, and basically we are focusing on different areas. But as you pointed out, we cannot roll it to the end. But in some of the areas, that is our focus. Of course, the data are not generated from one institution, and this is the challenge which we are facing, because they are generated from different sources, different institutions. So bringing together all the institutions, it is cost-free. And of course, currently we are also getting support from JICA to assist on how to collect data from the grassroots, but also how to train these people and so forth. So in one way or another, yes, we are trying to go along with that line, because in one way or another, the data which we are going to use, as I pointed out, we need to monitor these SDGs and so forth. So we don't like to divert much from other countries as well, because there should be some sort of comparing what we have in our country vis-a-vis what is compared to other countries. So we really adhere to what is recommended from the international level. I hope I've answered you.
My question with Mr. Bansal, myself, Dr. R.K. Yogi, and I am working as a scientist in ICAR. So my question regarding this, this is nice startup that is the startup that is initiated as a Samagra. So my question is that you are working in currently in Odisha district. So that is another state is covered under this particular startup in India. Only this is the first state you are working.
So we are a sector agnostic firm. So we work in education, health, skills and employment. So in agriculture, we are only working in Odisha as of now. Okay. Yeah.
I have a simple question. I am H.S. Sharma, oldest living ITN of India, 80-year-old, member National Task Force on Perishable Agriculture Commodity, trained in food irradiation across the world. My simple question is simple to all of you. What is the level of financial stress in other countries? Why in my country large number of farmers commit suicide? Is any equivalent in any other country? Just a simple ordinary question, sir.
Because in India, because of my financial stress, have you understood the question? Question is that in India, we have faced a situation that because of financial constraints, farmers are committing suicide in some areas. Okay, so because, for example, they have taken loans, when they grow the crops, maybe after some time because of floods or other things, crops were washed away, and he is under stress, he is not able to repay to the bank. And because of such constraints, farmers are committing suicide in some areas. So are there such things happening in other parts of the world, or is it, is there a financial stress on the farmers anywhere in the world? That is what we want to understand. Yeah, please, Jay. Yeah.
The question is interesting, but what is the relationship with this session on administrative data?
Yeah, that's okay. Because see, he is an 80-year-old gentleman. He is the oldest of the. So we thought, as a senior official statistician, we think let us if it is possible. Otherwise, we'll go ahead. Other questions. So anybody would like to give any information or aspects?
Perhaps I can try.
Okay. Yeah, please. Anyway, we have still 15 minutes to discuss.
Yeah.
So there is no problem of time, I believe.
Thank you, Chair. I can try to relate the case in India with our country in Tanzania. For the case of Tanzania, our farmers, they are not in a position to access financial assistance from the bank because of their missing collateral. So there's no way you can find farmers hanging themselves because they are failing to pay the loan. So I cannot say that they have the challenge because they want to access loan, but since they don't have collateral, which can enable them to get loan from the bank, so the cases are not there.
Any other question? Yeah, please go ahead.
If we still have time then, for T2s. You have mentioned education and how important, Elena Ramos from Eurostat. You have mentioned education and how important it is to educate train your enumerators. Have you explored the possibility of using platforms like massive online courses where people self-train themselves based on courses provided by you?
Okay, in fact, I would also like to add in the same context that in Indian context, we have a scheme whereby we try to improve our administrative data that is flowing from the village level. And one of the, there are two aspects to it. One is that generally in these administrative reporting systems, we try to collect information from all the farmers or all the units that we are dealing with. Okay, and that becomes a huge task. So we decided that, okay, for our purposes, for planning purposes, to get a first-hand information during the season itself, we said let us collect it only for the 20%. So we said 20% villages, we got this information beforehand. Remaining data can come later on. Okay, so that was one point, how to improve the data quality so that there is less burden on the person collecting the information. This was one. Second aspect was that the quality itself of the data that which he is supplying to the system, that sometimes becomes suspect because he was enumerating so many units and you never know what he is doing. So what we decided that two people, one from the same department, another from another department, they will jointly go to the field and verify whether the information that he has provided is correct or not. And based on those numbers, we try to improve our data that we have received overall, maybe some kind of a correction factor, those kind of things are done. So in this context, I would like to know from Mr. Mivisomba whether these kind of improvements, like one is training or any physical sense of improving the data, anything is being done.
Yeah, thank you very much. I would like to address this issue by saying that in our system, the one which we are using, we have the inbuilt manual, whereby these people, extension officers, once they visit and once they want to enter the data in some areas, they have opportunity to go through and they read and understand what is supposed to be done. But as you know, the self-reading, sometimes it might raise some issues which needs to be clarified. That's why we are saying that sometimes you can correspond, but you need a face-to-face interview or training. So that's one. But also we do provide manuals because it's a continuous work. So these people, they normally we give them hard copy, whereby they can, during their own time, they can go through and refer. But also we have these what we call telephone calls sometimes. If you are in the region and you're stuck, you can call officials at the headquarters, and they can make some sort of clarification. But I think we need also to go ahead and improve this kind of system so that to reduce the cost, because collecting all the staff at one roof and training them is really costful. But I do agree that these are extension officers, as you know, when you start conducting the agriculture census, everyone needs to put everything in the questionnaire. It's the same with these administrative data. So you are at the certain level, you need everything to be corrected from the grassroots. So we are saying that let us reduce the number of variables to be collected by these extension officers, because if you give a lot of variables, most of the time they tend to confuse. So in order to improve the quality, I do agree that at one extent, the system should be reduced to a certain number of variables in order to improve the quality. But as I told you that everyone at a certain level, they say, you guys, you correct me this kind of information, and this is the challenge we are facing. But all in all, we had to adhere to the advice that first, we have to reduce the variables in order to give space to this extension officer in order to report properly. So thank you very much.
In the meantime, I will have one question, and this is regarding the system in Myanmar. Okay, so I happen to have visited Myanmar 2-3 times, and I have some idea of the agriculture statistics system in that country as part of my job as part of the global strategy to improve agriculture and rural statistics. So one important strength of that system I wanted to tell you, and maybe I will seek progress on that, what has happened. In Myanmar, they have a land record system, and they have the cadastral maps for each village. And when we visited there about 4 years back, at that time they were engaged in digitizing those cadastral maps. Using their survey department, visiting each and every field and measuring GIS locations, GPS locations, using big sophisticated machinery to identify the fields and plots, survey numbers. And using that, they were generating the cadastral map. A copy of the map was being given to the enumerator. He will go to the village. Now this, for each plot, area is already available in the system because it has been measured using those machines. So using those map, he will just, on the paper, he will just note down which crop in which field, because area is already available. So he will just report the crops, and he will bring that maybe just in the form of codes, okay, wheat, 4W or rice, and like that. And this information feeds into the system. So at that time, it was about 30% or so this work was already done, and in fact, they were requesting international agencies to help in this quick digitization of their, say, records, particularly cadastral maps. So may I request you to kindly give us what is the status now, whether you have been able to complete it or still it is an ongoing process?
For the census, mainly responsible the Agriculture Department of Land Statistics. In this meeting, my friend is the Department of Agriculture Land Management Statistics, WD data. She can also the question this. Thank you.
Yes, my name is Mito from Department of Agriculture Land Management and Statistics. Now we are using the cadastral map based on the, especially our department is mainly responsible to collect the agriculture and land utilization statistics based on the cadastral maps. Now, to look back into the 10 years, we have studied to digitize the cadastral map by using the real-time kinematic system, GPS, RTK GPS. But we are now, throughout the country, are 90,000 QUIM maps. Now, nearly 1/3, 20,000 are already finished. The rest are under processing. So now we are, based on the cadastral map, we collect the data, ownership of the lands, and what variety of the crops they are grown in the register. Another one is the land use type, what kind of soil or cultivated land or layer, so soil class, according to the soil class classifications. So now we are trying to digitize, but we are limited in human resources. Now we are expansion of our organizations, so we recruit so many staff now. So we are, I think this tax maybe finish sooner or later. We are trying. So thank you very much for your questions.
Okay, anyone else? Otherwise, I have my question. Okay, so I have again one question for Tanzania, and this was about, you mentioned about village food situation, information on village food situation in one of your presentations. That information you collect quarterly. Okay, so can you elaborate more as to what kind of, on food situation, what kind of data is being collected, whether in terms of availability of food grains, or what kind of reports are being generated as part of this village food situation?
Yeah, as I pointed out that with the administrative data, it's regarded that the data can be used at different levels. Those people at the national, regional, ward, even at village level for different purposes. In that regard, that even at the village level, those who are in power or those who are in leadership, they want also to know the assessment, what is going on at the village level in terms of production of maize, so they can really tell the farmers or tell the community what is the situation and so forth. So this is the kind of food data which is being needed. But also you know that in Tanzania, our main crop for food, it's maize, and followed by paddy. So if a Tanzanian meets what we call ugari, then he might be telling you that he has not eaten. Like most of us, we have not eaten for the whole week while we were in India because we were missing ugali. So this is the thing which at the village level also, these people, they need to understand, because knowing the food situation is very, very important. So this is the kind of information which also we collect.
Still we have 5 minutes. Okay, I have a question for Mr. Ankur Bansal. Like the experiment that you are doing in Odisha, it looks very good in terms of putting all information together at one place. But in Indian context, problem is that there are so many different departments which are dealing with these respective reports. So how do you ensure that this data gets populated as per your frequency, and we can really depend on this support system? Many a times system exists, but if people do not provide the data at the required frequencies and with required quality, it becomes very difficult to sustain it. So do you have any issues with that?
So like I mentioned, there are two types of data. One is the transactional data and one is the reported data.
Yeah.
With transactional data, because there is no problem with that, because it is, as the transaction is happening, the data is getting generated, whether it's the sale of the fertilizer or the sale of the seed, where someone has to validate that at the time of purchase. So we need to just integrate that through APIs. So whatever the DBT system, so the sales system, we have integrated that with the DBT. Same with the weather department data, Met department data, where they sort of expose their APIs in the manner you want. So, and similarly with the central government schemes also, various of the schemes, like generally the central government scheme is soil health card or PMFBY thing. They are also on live basis. So those things we have been able to integrate through APIs. While there are other things which are in control of the agriculture department, because this system is designed by the agriculture department and owned by the agriculture department. So you have a fair degree of control on your workforce till the village level in terms of getting the reported data collected at a certain frequency. But you are right, there is data which is in the purview of the revenue department, sometime in the finance department for the loan data and all those things. Those data, we are still struggling. Because you have to depend on a certain other department to sort of coordinate and do that. Yeah, so that's not still a solved thing, but at the same time, if we want the data at a monthly frequency, we keep asking for that, and we might get it in 3 months. But still, it's still better than getting those data at annual basis.
True.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I have one small question.
Let me have this. Yeah, please.
Thank you, Chair. Me, it's not, I need clarification from my colleague from NIMA. At one point, she mentioned that they do use crop cutting. And I wanted to know if the crop cutting is for which, do you have specific crops for that? And I know that crop cutting also takes several processes. I mean, from the demarcating the area, cutting, drying, and so forth. So what is the frequency of that kind of the data which you are trying to collect from that process of crop cutting? So that's what I want to understand from them.
Okay, yeah. Would you like to suggest his question is that you have indicated in the presentation that Myanmar does crop cutting experiments for generating yield rates for the crops. So on that, do you have any information as to how do you do it?
Especially Central Statistical Organization only combine the Department of Agriculture, Land Management Statistics. I don't know about the district level, how to collect crop cutting. I don't know about where. My friend is from Department of Agriculture, Land Management Statistics.
Okay, yeah. If you have any information, please go ahead.
I will explain about that. Our department is responsible for the crop cutting. We are now the traditional method, not scientific method. We are now based on especially on the paddy. So paddy is on the eye evaluation. The goods are the medians and at bed. According to their variety, according to the area, we are selected the 3 plots. So 1/10 of the acre for 3560 square feet. So 1/10 of the acre.
Okay.
Sometimes area 1 acre or the same length. According to their each block in each the townships are based on variety of crops and the variety of the crops and area. Then the collect the each yields can be collected by average. Then sent to the district and district from the district to their region, state, and to the headquarters. After that, we do the Central Statistical Organization to disseminate the yield of the each crop. In addition to the paddy, other crop like paddy or parts are also estimated by traditional methods. Thank you very much.
Okay. I think that clarifies the point how they conduct crop cutting experiments. Yeah, please. So maybe this is the last question.
I have very simple question, sir. How agriculture produce price are controlled in other countries? I see in my country, milk price down, they throw thousands of liters of milk on the road, thousands of tons of tomato on the road, thousands of tons of potato on the road. Every single day, I can show you in the newspaper. Why is it there is some system of price control in other countries? In my country, If the price is down, farmer will come and throw the produce which has taken 3 months to produce, spend money on fertilizer and his labor, but will throw it on the road. 1,000 tons of onion, potatoes, milk. This is my simple question, sir.
Okay. So any reflections? Okay. Okay, so I think now we have already crossed the limit of the session by 2 minutes. So thank you very much for the presentation, presenters and all the audience. Thank you.